Hey, before you fall into a medieval snooze fest, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss these tales. Ever heard of a king who executed a man for laughing during a funeral? Or how about the time a town thought it would be a good idea to burn a witch only to discover she was actually just a really bad cook? Stick around, we're diving into the bizarre and grotesque practices of history that will have you questioning just how far humanity has come, or if we've come at all. What's more shocking? The fact that in 1233, Pope Gregory IX declared cats to be instruments of Satan, leading to mass cat exterminations, or that in ancient Rome, some folks actually used urine as mouthwash. Seriously, who thought that was a good idea? Let's not forget the delightful world of medieval punishments. Ever heard of the brazen bull? It was a torture device that doubled as a barbecue. Yes, you heard that right. And speaking of bizarre, did you know there were actual dancing plagues that swept through Europe? Imagine trying to outdance your way out of a heart attack in the 16th century. So, what's the deal with all these oddities? Why did people think bloodletting was a cure-all? And why is history so obsessed with weird sexual practices? Get ready for jaw-dropping facts, like how in ancient Greece, a woman could mean anything from a wife to a slave. Buckle up for a wild ride through time, from the 5th century BC to the 18th century AD, because we're going to explore the strange, the shocking, and the downright absurd. And hey, if you fall asleep, just turn on loop, and let the bizarre history wash over you until your dreams are as weird as reality used to be. When one thinks of the Vikings, images of fierce warriors sailing across the seas, wielding axes, and shouting battle cries come to mind. But hidden behind this veneer of valor lies a most baffling aspect of their culture, the meticulous attention to the polishing of their shields. Yes, you heard that right. From the earliest records in the sagas to the more bureaucratic inclinations of the late Viking Age, the Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols reveal a world that is as absurd as it is intriguing. Join me as we navigate the turbulent waters of this tedious history. #### The earliest records, a gleaming start, circa 800 AD. Our journey begins in the late 8th century, around 793 AD, when Viking raids started to make waves, quite literally, across Europe. The first recorded Viking raid at the Lindisfarne Monastery in England marks the beginning of their notorious reputation. But what were these warriors doing in between such raids? Surprisingly, they were not just sharpening their axes, they were also polishing their shields. Historical accounts, particularly the Saga of the Inglings, mention that a well-polished shield was a mark of honor. Imagine showing up for a raid with a dull, smudged piece of wood while your fellow raiders flaunt their sparkling, mirror-like shields. It was like arriving at a black tie event in a Hawaiian shirt, unacceptable. #### The polishing protocols, a shielding science, circa 850 AD. By the mid-9th century, the Vikings had established a rather elaborate set of protocols regarding shield maintenance. It was in this period that the first documented shield polishing schedules emerged. Artifacts from archaeological digs in places like York, known as Jorvik, hint at a division of labor among Viking warriors, and yes, that included designated shield polishers. Monday, initial scrub with sand and water, a vigorous workout for the arms. Tuesday, application of animal fat, because what's a shield without a little grease? Wednesday, the gleam of glory ritual. This involved chanting while polishing, ensuring the shield was imbued with bravery energy. Thursday, a thorough inspection by the chief shield polisher, who probably had a throne made of shields. Friday, rest day. Because even the most dedicated shield polisher needs a break. Can you imagine the camaraderie? Hey, Bjorn, how's your shield looking? Did you remember to add the goat fat? Hashtag the Shield Polishing Olympics, a competitive edge, circa 870 AD. By 870 AD, polishing shields had evolved into a veritable sport, a phenomenon we might refer to today as the Shield Polishing Olympics. In settlements like Kattegat, warriors would gather to demonstrate their polishing prowess. The competition featured categories such as Fastest Shield Polish and Most Creative Shield Design. A notable account from the saga of the Skjoldungs recounts a heated rivalry between two warriors, Einar the Gleeful and Rolf the Relentless. Einar, known for his exceptional polishing technique, once brought forth a shield so shiny that it reflected the sun, blinding his opponent during a crucial moment of competition. Rolf's response? He simply turned around and used his dull shield as a makeshift mirror to check his hair, because who doesn't want to look good while losing? Hashtag the Great Shield Fat Debate, essential or excessive. Circa 900 AD. As the 10th century approached, the debate over shield polishing materials reached epic proportions. In a rather absurd turn of events, various Viking clans began to argue over the best type of animal fat to use. Was it seal fat or bear fat that provided the best sheen? Records from the Gulating Law suggest that a shield polisher from the clan of the bear would often challenge the seal clan to duels, primarily to prove that their fat was superior. The result? A festival that turned into an all-out food fight, with shields being used as makeshift plates for the various dishes made from the very animals they championed. The aftermath? A sticky mess and a lot of very confused bears. Hashtag the rise of the shield maintenance guilds, circa 950 AD. By 950 AD, the Viking world had seen the emergence of specialized guilds dedicated solely to shield maintenance. These guilds were serious business. The Guild of Shield Polishers, known affectionately as the Shiny Shield Society, SSS, had a strict hierarchy. Membership required not only polishing skills but also a deep understanding of shield aesthetics. Members were known to engage in lengthy debates about the optimal angle for shield display, because if you were going to have a shield, it better be at a 45-degree angle to catch the sunlight just right. Furthermore, the SSS held annual meetings where members would present their Shield of the Year candidates. Picture it, a room filled with Vikings, each presenting their polished shields, while others critiqued the luster and warp of the wood. It's as if you've stumbled upon a Viking version of Project Runway, and here we see Bjorn's innovative use of bear fat and an intricate rune pattern. Will it make the cut? #### The Great Shield Polishing Catastrophe, circa 980 AD. In a shocking twist of fate, the Great Shield Polishing Catastrophe of 980 AD remains etched in Viking lore. During a particularly intense polishing competition in the town of Skara, a massive storm rolled in, leading to an unexpected confluence of events. As the warriors frantically polished their shields to prepare for the impending raid, a rogue gust of wind sent a flurry of finely polished shields flying into the air. This led to the most ridiculous spectacle ever witnessed: shields soaring like birds, shining brilliantly against the darkened skies, while warriors yelled in confusion. And let's not forget the aftermath: hundreds of bewildered Viking warriors running around trying to catch their own shields, while others simply stood there, shieldless and aghast, wondering how they would explain this to their chieftains. Yes, my lord, I lost my shield to a supernatural wind. #####. The decline of shield polishing, a shift in focus, circa 1000 AD. As we approached the dawn of the 11th century, the Viking Age began to wane. The rise of Christianity and the establishment of trade routes led to a shift in priorities. Suddenly, polishing shields became less important than polishing one's reputation as a prosperous trader or a devout Christian. In 1000 AD, the last recorded instance of a Viking shield polishing competition took place in what is now Norway. It was a bittersweet affair, as participants reminisced about the glory days of raiding and polishing, while also eyeing the shiny new swords that were becoming the new must-have accessory. Was shield polishing destined to fade into obscurity? Perhaps, but not without a final hurrah. The last champion of the Shiny Shield Society, a burly warrior named Olaf the Obsessive, reportedly polished his shield one last time for posterity, declaring, "May this shield shine bright in the halls of Valhalla." ####. Conclusion, a legacy of luster. As we close the chapter on the tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols, one must ponder, what does this all mean? Were the Vikings truly warriors at heart, or were they simply the most dedicated shield maintenance crew in history? While tales of their raids, conquests, and exploration have filled the pages of history, let us not overlook the absurdity of their shield polishing rituals. From catastrophic wins to fat debates and competitive polishing, the Vikings remind us that even the fiercest of warriors had their quirks. So, the next time you think of a Viking, picture not just the helmet and the axe, but also the gleam of well-polished shields reflecting their absurdly complex culture, a culture that, at the very least, knew the importance of a good polish. The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. The Vikings, known for their fierce raids and seafaring prowess, were also masters of a less glamorous but equally crucial aspect of warfare, the art of shield maintenance. Yes, shield polishing was a regimented affair, and its history is not as thrilling as a dragon ship's maiden voyage, but it is a tale worth telling, filled with construction methods, bureaucratic quirks, and the occasional slapstick moment that could rival a Norse comedy. 1. Construction methods, materials, and costs. 800 1000 CE, ***. Before we even get to the polishing, let's start with the shields themselves. Viking shields were typically round, boasting a diameter of about 80 to 90 centimeters, 31 to 35 inches. They were constructed using various materials, particularly wood, often oak or pine, for the shield body. The outer rim was commonly reinforced with iron or bronze. After all, who wants to face a battle with a flimsy shield? Construction steps. Wood selection: oak was favored for its strength. A shield maker, or skjoldmakar, would inspect timber for rot, a skill comparable to modern-day lumberjack tinder dates. Shape formation: the wood was steamed and bent into a circular shape, a process that required the patience of a Norse god. Reinforcement: iron or bronze bosses were affixed in the center, not just for decoration but for the practical purpose of deflecting blows, and for the occasional impromptu horned helmet party. Finishing touches: shields were often painted with bold designs, making them as much a work of art as a defensive tool. The paint was typically made from natural pigments mixed with animal fat, a recipe for both color and an unexpected olfactory experience. Cost considerations. The average cost of a shield in the late 10th century could run a Viking about 1 to 2 silver coins, an investment that could either save your life or become a very expensive piece of firewood. 2. Bureaucratic rules and punishments, 900-1100 CE, ***. With shields constructed, one might think the Vikings had more important matters at hand than polishing schedules. But in the eyes of the local thing, the assembly or council, nothing was more crucial than maintaining the collective image of the warrior class. Thus, the Viking shield polishing protocols, VSPP, were born. Bureaucratic rules. Shield inspection days: every first moon of every quarter, warriors were required to present their shields for inspection. A shield deemed unfit could result in a fine of 3 sheep, a heavy penalty for a Viking farmer. Polishing requirements: shields had to be polished every fortnight using a blend of animal fat and crushed quartz, because nothing says, "Fear me," like a shiny shield. Documentation: each warrior was expected to keep a shield maintenance log, documenting polishing dates and techniques. Missing an entry could lead to a stern talking to from the village jarl. Punishments. Forfeiture of shield: a shield that failed inspection 3 times in a row would be confiscated and repurposed as a decorative wall piece in the local tavern, much to the embarrassment of its former owner. Community service: offenders were required to polish the shields of others for a fortnight, a punishment that was said to provide ample time for reflection, though many used it as an excuse to gossip about the latest raid. 3. Roles and job descriptions, 950-1100 CE, ***. Viking society was nothing if not organized, and the roles related to shield maintenance were no exception. Here's a breakdown. Skjoldmakar, shield maker, tasked with the construction and repair of shields. The skjoldmakar was often seen as a local celebrity, known for their craftsmanship and sometimes even their artistic flair. shield polisher, a specialized role, often filled by the most meticulous of warriors. This person was responsible for ensuring that every shield gleamed at the inspection. They were often referred to as the buffing bard, for their propensity to entertain with tales of past glories while they worked. Shield inspector, a jarl or an appointed warrior would take on this role. The inspector wielded the power to pass or fail shields, a responsibility that could lead to an unexpected rise in popularity, or a nasty reputation. Log keeper, this role was essential for maintaining the shield maintenance logs. While it sounds dull, the log keeper was often the most sought-after advisor during raids, as they kept track of all warriors' equipment and readiness, akin to a modern-day logistics officer. Witty aside, it's said that in the heat of battle, a poorly polished shield could lead to a warrior being called the buffoon of the battlefield. Not exactly the legacy one hopes for. 4. Technical specs and inventories, 1000 to 1100 CE, ****. The Viking shield polishing protocols were not only about aesthetics, they also included detailed technical specifications and inventories that would make even the most meticulous spreadsheet enthusiast proud. Technical specifications ***. Shield thickness, typically 1.5 to 2 centimeters, allowing for enough resilience against blows without becoming unwieldy. Weight, a fully constructed shield weighed around 2 to 3 kilograms, 4.4 to 6.6 pounds, which was manageable for a warrior on the move. Polishing materials. Animal fat, essential for moisture retention and shine. Crushed quartz, used for its abrasiveness, this was the Viking equivalent of modern-day sandpaper. Beeswax, occasionally mixed in for a protective layer, ensuring shields maintained their luster in the salty air. Inventory management. Every village had a designated shield repository, where shields were stored and the inventory meticulously tracked. A shield inventory list might look like this. Shield ID owner last polished condition notes. 001 Bjorn the Bold December 5th, 1003 excellent painted with dragon design. 002 Freya the Fierce December 5th, 1003 fair needs new boss. 003 Olaf the Old December 1st, 1003 poor confiscated for fines. To stay ahead, many shield owners would check their inventories and polishing logs before raids, ensuring that when they shouted, "Shield wall," they weren't just talking about the human wall but also the shiny, well-maintained wooden barriers behind them. 5. The modern legacy of Viking shield polishing practices ****. While Viking shield polishing may seem like an archaic practice, its legacy lives on in modern military and sporting equipment maintenance. The meticulous care and attention to detail mirror practices in today's armed forces and even among professional athletes. Imagine a modern-day football team where every player meticulously polishes their helmets every week, carefully documenting their methods and results. The parallels are uncanny, and one can only hope that today's athletes don't face the same level of punishment for less than shiny gear as their Viking ancestors did. In conclusion, the history of Viking shield polishing may not make for the most riveting saga in Norse lore, but it reveals a fascinating glimpse into the organizational prowess of Viking society. From construction methods to bureaucratic rules, the roles of shield maintenance were as critical as any raid or conquest. And while the Viking age may be long gone, the spirit of meticulousness and pride in one's equipment endures, reminding us that sometimes, the devil, or the dragon, is in the details. #### The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. In the tumultuous world of the Vikings, shield polishing was no casual affair. It was an intricate blend of artistry, bureaucracy, and strict adherence to protocols that would make even the most seasoned administrative assistant weep with envy. To truly appreciate the gravity of these schedules, we must delve into the construction methods, materials, costs, bureaucratic rules, and the surprisingly detailed job descriptions that govern this crucial aspect of Viking life. #### Construction methods and materials. Viking shields were not mere pieces of wood, they were the very essence of a warrior's identity. Typically constructed from planks of sturdy wood, such as oak or ash, these shields were round, measuring about 90 centimeters, 35 inches, in diameter. The construction process began around 800 AD, with master craftsmen employing a variety of techniques to ensure durability and aesthetic appeal. 1. Wood selection. The choice of wood was paramount. Oak was favored for its resilience, while ash was lighter and easier to maneuver. A shield made from inferior wood could result in catastrophic failure during battle. Imagine a crucial moment in a skirmish, only to have your shield splinter like a cheap piece of IKEA furniture. 2. Layering and shaping. Craftspersons would soak wooden planks to increase flexibility, bending them into a circular form before securing them with iron or bronze nails. The outer edge was often reinforced with a metal rim to prevent damage during clashes. This meticulous layering could take days, if not weeks, depending on the craftsman's skill level. 3. Cost considerations. The average cost of materials for a single shield could range from 3 to 10 silver coins, depending on the quality of wood and metal used. For a Viking household, this was a considerable investment, akin to purchasing a small boat or a hefty quantity of mead. #### Bureaucratic rules and punishments. Just as there were strict protocols for shield creation, Viking society was rife with rules governing the maintenance and polishing of these vital symbols of status and protection. By the late 9th century, as Viking settlements expanded and became more structured, bureaucratic systems emerged to oversee shield-related activities. 1. The Shield Polishing Council. This governing body was established in 870 AD, consisting of high-ranking warriors and craftsmen tasked with overseeing shield maintenance schedules. Their primary goal: ensuring that every shield gleamed like the surface of a freshly minted coin. 2. Polishing protocols. A comprehensive schedule was drawn up. Every shield was to be polished at least once every fortnight. The polishing was done using a mixture of whale fat and crushed chalk, creating a paste that not only shined but also protected the wood from the elements. 3. Punishments for non-compliance. Should a shield be found lacking in luster, the owner faced severe consequences. Fines of up to 5 silver coins were imposed for neglect, and repeat offenders could earn themselves a public shaming, which typically involved being doused in fish guts, an ordeal that certainly left a lasting impression. 4. The Shield Inspectorate. This feared group was responsible for conducting random inspections. Imagine a burly Viking, axe in hand, demanding to see your shield's polishing log. If it was found wanting, the punishment could escalate to participation in the infamous shield cleaning trials, an endurance test that involved polishing shields for hours on end while reciting Viking poetry. Hashtag roles and job descriptions. The meticulous nature of shield maintenance necessitated a well-defined hierarchy within Viking society. Each role was crucial to ensuring that the polishing protocols were adhered to with precision. 1. The Shield Master. This individual was the top authority on shield management, typically a seasoned warrior with extensive knowledge of materials and maintenance. The Shield Master was responsible for overseeing the entire polishing process and reporting directly to the Shield Polishing Council. 2. Polishers, often apprentices. These young warriors were tasked with the hands-on work of polishing the shields. They learned the craft under the watchful eye of the Shield Master, often spending long hours perfecting the art of the polish. It is said that a good polisher could make a shield shine so brightly that it was mistaken for a sunlit lake, though this led to several unfortunate incidents involving overly optimistic fishermen. 3. Material gatherers. These individuals sourced the necessary materials for polishing, ensuring a steady supply of whale fat and chalk. They often traveled to coastal areas, facing the dangers of sea monsters and rival clans, all for the sake of maintaining their fellow warriors' shields. 4. Record keepers. The unsung heroes of the shield polishing bureaucracy. These individuals documented the polishing schedules and compliance reports. Their meticulous records were critical for tracking the history of each shield, ensuring that no warrior could claim ignorance of their duties. Hashtag technical specs and inventories. As with any well-run operation, the Viking approach to shield polishing involved detailed technical specifications and inventories. By the turn of the 10th century, the Shield Master had developed a standardized system to keep track of each shield's condition and polishing history. 1. Shield specifications. Diameter, 90 centimeters, 35 inches. Wood type, oak or ash. Weight, approximately 2.5 kilograms, 5.5 pounds. Metal reinforcement, iron or bronze, typically weighing 0.5 kilograms, 1.1 pounds. 2. Polishing inventory. Each shield had an accompanying log that included date of last polish, materials used, type and quantity, name of the polisher, any noted damages or repairs. 3. Supply lists. The bureaucratic rigor extended to the procurement of materials. Annual inventories were conducted to ensure that the Shield Polishing Council had ample supplies on hand. The typical yearly supply list included whale fat, 10 liters. Chalk, 5 kilograms. Iron nails, 50 pieces. Polishing cloths, 20 pieces, typically made from goat leather. 4. Polishing schedule template. a standardized template was developed to streamline the polishing process. It required details such as date of polishing, name of the warrior responsible, condition assessment, e.g., shiny as a dragon scale or needs more love than a cat in winter. Hashtag conclusion. In summary, the Viking shield polishing protocols were a fascinating tapestry of artistry, bureaucracy, and community responsibility. While many might view this as a mundane aspect of Viking life, it was a vital component that defined the warrior culture, underscoring the importance of readiness and honor. As the sun sets on this deep dive into the minutiae of shield maintenance, one can't help but wonder, if only today's office workers had such a structured approach to their coffee breaks and supply orders. After all, a well-polished shield is a happy shield, and a happy warrior is a force to be reckoned with, unless, of course, they forget to polish it before battle. Hashtag the tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. When we think of the Vikings, we often conjure up images of longships slicing through icy waters, fierce warriors clad in furs and iron, and a culture steeped in mythology. However, buried beneath these tales of conquest lies an equally captivating but far less glamorous aspect of their daily lives, the meticulous and often tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Yes, you read that right, shield polishing, the unsung hero of Viking domestic life, was a matter of great importance that required a level of organization that would make modern bureaucrats weep with envy. Hashtag construction methods and materials. To understand the need for these polishing protocols, one must first appreciate the craftsmanship that went into Viking shields. Typically, these shields were constructed using a wooden core, often made from oak due to its robust properties. The Vikings understood that a sturdy shield was essential for survival in battle, so they employed various construction methods that became standardized over time. Materials used in shield construction wood primarily oak, but also ash or pine when oak was scarce, circa 800 CE. Iron used for the central boss, the circular piece that protects the hand, and reinforcing edges. Leather often wrapped around the edges for added durability and grip. Paint natural dyes derived from plants and minerals were often used to shield the wood from the elements as well as to display clan colors. The cost of producing a single shield could vary considerably based on the materials used and the craftsmanship involved. A standard shield might cost a Viking warrior roughly 2 silver pieces, approximate 1/10 of a cow, for those keeping score, while a finely crafted, brightly painted shield could run upwards of 5 silver pieces. While it may not sound like much, remember that a typical Viking warrior would only earn about 1 silver piece for a week's worth of plundering. Thus, a well-polished shield was not just a fashion statement, it was a significant investment. Hashtag bureaucratic rules and punishments. Enter the realm of bureaucracy, or rather, the Viking equivalent of it, often termed the Shield Code. The Shield Code was an intricate set of rules that governed the maintenance and care of shields, primarily to ensure that they were always battle-ready. If you thought the DMV was strict about vehicle upkeep, wait until you hear about the punishments for shield neglect. Rules included *. 1. Monthly inspections * every month, a designated shield inspector, often the village chieftain or a trusted warrior, would conduct a thorough inspection of all shields in the community. 2. Polishing schedule * shields were to be polished bi-weekly, using a mixture of animal fat and crushed herbs, the secret for a good shine. 3. Color maintenance * if the paint showed signs of fading, a warrior was mandated to repaint their shield before the next raid. Punishments for non-compliance *. First offense * a public reprimand and a fine of 1 silver piece. Second offense * mandatory attendance at shield care workshops, a form of medieval punishment disguised as education. Third offense * the warrior would be sent to shield watch, where they were required to guard the shields of others for an entire raid cycle. Talk about a demotion. One can only imagine the awkward conversations that ensued over mead when a warrior's shield was deemed unworthy. So, Thorvald, how's that polishing going? Still using the old goat fat, I see. ###### roles and job descriptions. In every Viking settlement, a hierarchy of roles emerged, each with specific responsibilities related to shield care and maintenance. Here's a breakdown of the key positions. 1. Shield Master *, the head honcho responsible for overseeing all shield-related activities. They were often the oldest or most experienced warrior and had the final say in all matters concerning shield construction and maintenance. 2. Shield Inspectors * appointed by the Shield Master. These individuals were tasked with conducting inspections and reporting any issues or failures in the polishing schedule. Think of them as the school principals of the shield world, strict but fair. 3. Shield Polisher *, a dedicated role, often filled by a younger warrior or apprentice. Their job was to ensure that all shields were polished to perfection according to the established protocols. This was no small feat, as they would need to balance polishing with training for battle. 4. Material Gatherers * these individuals sourced the wood, iron, and leather necessary for shield construction. They often had to navigate treacherous landscapes and hostile territories to procure high-quality materials. 5. Clan Artist * responsible for painting and designing the shields. These artisans often had a flair for creativity and were sometimes consulted on matters of clan identity and pride. One can only imagine the lively debates that took place at the Shield Masters' Roundtable. I propose we introduce a new color for the shields. What do you think, Joran? Blue with gold trim? Or just more red? #### technical specs and inventories. To keep track of all shields and their respective conditions, the Vikings developed a rudimentary yet effective inventory system. By 850 CE, settlements were maintaining detailed records of shields, including their colors, materials, and polishing histories. Key technical specifications included *. Diameter * typically around 90 cm for standard shields, although some could reach up to 1.2 meters for specialized warriors. Weight asterisk ranged from 5 kilograms to 7 kilograms, depending on materials and construction methods. Thickness asterisk generally 1.5 centimeters to 2 centimeters, ensuring a balance between weight and durability. Sample inventory list asterisk. Shield ID *001. Owner Bjorn Ironside. Color dark red with black trim. Last polished 10/01/850 CE. Condition excellent. Shield ID *002. Owner Astrid the Fearless. Color blue with silver designs. Last polished 10/10/850 CE. Condition needs repainting. Maintaining these inventories was crucial to ensure that all warriors had access to effective and aesthetically pleasing shields. After all, no one wants to go into battle looking like a band of ragtag amateurs, unless you're aiming for the most pitiful award, which, let's face it, was not a coveted title among the Vikings. Conclusion, a final shine. As we peel back the layers of Viking life, we find that the mundane tasks of shield polishing were not just trivial pursuits but rather reflections of a society that valued order, craftsmanship, and preparation for battle. The meticulousness of their shield care protocols reveals much about the Viking mindset, a blend of warrior spirit and meticulous attention to detail. In conclusion, while Viking raids and conquests may capture our imagination, it is the behind-the-scenes work of shield polishing, the bureaucratic rules that governed it, and the dedicated individuals who ensured the shields were battle-ready that truly paint the complete picture of Viking life. So the next time you envision a Viking warrior charging into battle, take a moment to appreciate the hours spent polishing that shield, because, in the world of Vikings, a shiny shield was not just for show, it was a matter of life and death, and perhaps, a bit of bragging rights at the mead hall. After all, who wouldn't want to boast about having the shiniest shield in all of Scandinavia? The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Ah, the Viking Age. A time of raiding, exploration, and, of course, the meticulous maintenance of one's shield. Though it might seem like a minor detail in the grand tapestry of Norse culture, the art of shield polishing was steeped in tradition, bureaucracy, and perhaps too many hours spent staring at one's reflection in a well-polished wooden surface. Let us embark on a journey through the tumultuous seas of Viking shield care, exploring construction methods, bureaucratic rules, job descriptions, technical specifications, and inventories, because if there's one thing we know about Vikings, it's that they loved their paperwork almost as much as they loved their mead. Construction methods and materials, circa 800–1000 AD. Viking shields were not just mere circles of wood, they were a blend of craftsmanship and practicality. The typical construction involved several key materials and methods. 1. Wood type. Most shields were crafted from softwoods, primarily pine or birch. These materials were favored for their lightweight properties and ease of manipulation. Oak was occasionally used for the more elite warriors, who preferred durability over weight, because what's a warrior without their hefty shield, right? 2. Construction technique. The shields were fashioned from planks that were either steam-bent or constructed from several segments glued together. Imagine a jigsaw puzzle, but one that could potentially save your life in battle. The edges were often reinforced with iron or leather to withstand blows from swords and axes. 3. Cost. The cost of constructing a shield varied depending on materials and craftsmanship. A basic shield could be assembled for the price of a few sheep, around 1 to 2 silver coins, while a high-quality model with intricate designs and reinforced edges might run you 5 to 10 silver coins. This was no small investment, considering that a Viking's wealth was often measured in livestock, silver, and robust shields. ### Bureaucratic rules and punishments, circa 900 AD. Of course, with great shields came great responsibility. Viking society was not just about pillaging and feasting, it had its own bureaucratic nuances. The Shielding Council of 900 AD laid out strict rules and protocols for shield maintenance. 1. Polishing schedule. Each warrior was required to polish their shield at least once a week. Every Wednesday at dusk was the designated time. Failing to do so would result in a fine of 1 goat or a week of extra shield duty, which was basically a death sentence for any self-respecting Viking. 2. Inspection days. Every month, the local jarl would hold an inspection day, where shields must be presented in their full glory. Those who failed the inspection were subjected to public humiliation, often being forced to wear their shields as hats for the remainder of the day. Trust me, it was not a good look. 3. Materials accountability. Warriors were responsible for their own supplies, from polishing rags, typically made from sheep wool, to oils derived from fish, which, let's be honest, didn't smell great. Any warrior caught using subpar materials faced severe punishment, including ostracization from the community, because there's nothing worse than a Viking with a tarnished reputation and a dull shield. ### Roles and job descriptions, circa 950 AD. As with any well-ordered society, the Viking shield polishing operation required a hierarchy of roles, each with its own responsibilities. 1. The shield bearer, the primary warrior responsible for their own shield maintenance. Duties included polishing, inspections, and ensuring that the shield was battle-ready at all times. Think of them as the CEO of their personal shield brand. 2. The shield inspector, appointed by the Jarl. This individual had the authority to conduct monthly inspections and enforce the polishing schedule. They were often known for their sharp eyes and sharper tongues, as they could reduce a warrior to tears with a single critique. 3. The shield artisan, skilled craftsmen who specialized in shield construction and repair. Their job was not only to create shields but also to provide advice on polishing techniques and the best materials. They were the consultants of the Viking world, often found in the local mead hall discussing the latest shield trends. 4. The shield historian. This role was less common but equally important. Responsible for documenting the lineage of each shield, from its creation to its battles. They kept meticulous records, including the number of polishings and repairs made. One could argue they were the Wikipedia of Viking shields, but with more mead and fewer citations. ### technical specs and inventories, circa 980 AD. By the late Viking Age, technical specifications for shields became increasingly standardized, leading to the creation of detailed inventories. Here's a glimpse into what a typical Viking shield inventory might look like. 1. Diameter. Shields often ranged from 75 centimeters to 90 centimeters, with the average diameter being around 80 centimeters, ideal for both offense and defense. 2. Thickness. The standard thickness was about 1.5 to 2 centimeters. A thicker shield offered more durability but could become cumbersome in battle. It was a delicate balance. Nobody wanted to be the warrior who couldn't lift their shield in a fight. 3. Weight. A well-constructed shield typically weighed between 2 to 5 kilograms. The lighter the shield, the quicker the warrior could maneuver, but a heavier shield provided better protection, again, a classic case of, you can't have your cake and eat it too. 4. Polishing materials. Polishing rags, 10 to 20 pieces of sheep wool, for a full year's worth of polishing. Oils, 2 to 3 liters of fish oil or seal oil, depending on local availability. Wood stain, 1 liter of natural dyes, berries for colors and charcoal for black. 5. Shield art. Many shields featured painted designs, often representing clans, gods, or personal achievements. Documentation indicated the use of natural pigments, red from ochre and blue from woad, which meant that the shield was not just a tool but a canvas for self-expression. ### The rise of shield polishing guilds, circa 1000 AD. As Viking society evolved, so too did the need for specialized knowledge. Enter the shield polishing guilds, which emerged around the turn of the millennium. These guilds established a more formalized approach to shield care, complete with apprenticeships and membership fees. 1. Guild membership. Joining a guild required a small fee, generally around 2 silver coins, and a commitment to attend regular meetings. Members were expected to share their techniques and resources, ensuring that all shields were polished to perfection. 2. Apprenticeships. Young warriors could apprentice under master polishers, learning the intricacies of shield care. They would spend up to 3 years honing their skills, often starting with polishing a simple wooden plank before graduating to the real deal. 3. Annual competitions. Each year, guilds held polishing competitions, where warriors showcased their skills. The winner received a prize, often a hefty quantity of mead, and bragging rights for the entire year. It was a chance to shine, sometimes literally. ### Conclusion, a reflection on shield polishing. In conclusion, the history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols is a tale of craftsmanship, bureaucracy, and a touch of absurdity. From the materials and construction methods to the roles of shield bearers and inspectors, each element contributed to the rich tapestry of Viking culture. Despite the hardships and the rigorous schedules, one can't help but appreciate the dedication Vikings had to their shields. After all, a well-polished shield not only protected them in battle but also provided a reflection of their identity, a mirror of sorts for their warrior ethos. So, the next time you hear tales of Viking raids, remember, behind every successful battle was a meticulous warrior polishing their shield, ensuring it gleamed as brightly as their ambitions. And who knows? Maybe the secret to Viking success lay not just in their swords, but in their shields shining just a bit brighter than everyone else's. The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Ah, the Vikings! Fearsome warriors, skilled sailors, and master shipbuilders who plundered across Europe, legendary figures whose names conjure images of epic battles and thunderous roars. But let's take a step back from the glorious sagas of bloodshed and pillaging and instead dive into a topic that rarely gets the spotlight it deserves, the riveting realm of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Yes, dear reader, the squeaky clean side of Norse culture, where the stakes were high, and the shields were shinier than a freshly polished apple. ##### regional variations over time. Much like the local variations in your favorite fast food burger, who knew secret sauce could mean so many things, Viking shield polishing practices were as diverse as the Scandinavian fjords. In the bustling ports of Dublin, the Viking settlers had their own unique polishing techniques. Rumor has it they preferred a blend of fish oil and crushed seashells for that iridescent finish, because who wouldn't want their shield to glisten like a mermaid's tail? Meanwhile, up in Norway, Viking warlords were known to be a tad more practical. They leveraged the natural resources around them, using birch bark and a local type of moss reputed to be excellent at removing pesky stains. Viking shield polishing wasn't just a matter of aesthetics, it was a regional necessity. If your shield wasn't shiny enough to reflect the sun and blind your enemies during battle, you might as well have turned up in a woolen tunic and a pair of sandals. Over time, the edicts from local chieftains began to standardize polishing practices. By the end of the 10th century, the Great Council of the North, a name that sounds far more majestic than it actually was, instituted a series of laws dictating not just how often one should polish their shield, but also the precise materials one should use, depending on the region. These laws were often written in runes on stone tablets and, believe it or not, were sometimes accompanied by illustrations of shields in various states of polish. Talk about a riveting read. #### laws, edicts, taxes, and ledgers. To the untrained eye, the life of a Viking warrior may seem like a perpetual series of raids and conquests. However, behind the scenes, there was a bureaucratic machine churning away, ensuring that every shield was polished to perfection. Yes, Viking society had laws and taxes dedicated solely to the upkeep of shields. Shocking, isn't it? Imagine the scene: a weary warrior returns from a long day of sword swinging, only to find a notice on his door demanding a shield maintenance tax. This tax was levied based on the size of one's shield and the frequency of polishing. Naturally, those with larger shields, often the most ostentatious warriors, paid a heftier price for their glimmering displays of bravado. The funds were then funneled into the local shield polishing guild, which, let's be honest, sounds like a really bad cover band. For record keeping, the Vikings employed skilled scribes who meticulously logged polishing schedules and payments in massive ledgers. These ledgers were often secured in community halls, where warriors could review their own polishing obligations and those of their competitors. The sheer drama of it. Picture two warriors squaring off in a contest of gleaming shields, all while the townsfolk reference their ledgers to see who fell short of the community's strict polishing standards. #### logistics and supply chains. You might be wondering what goes into the logistics of maintaining a fleet of shiny Viking shields. One could argue it's more complicated than planning a heist on a dragon's hoard. The Vikings were not just fierce warriors, they were also savvy traders and logistics masterminds. They established a network of supply chains that extended far beyond the fjords of Scandinavia. Just imagine a bustling Viking market, traders hawking fish, furs, and of course, the increasingly necessary shield polishing materials. There were barrels of fish oil, bags of crushed seashells, and bundles of moss piled high, all awaiting eager hands. A well-organized logistics operation was crucial. Each region had its own specialties. For instance, the far-flung settlements in Greenland had an abundance of reindeer moss, leading to a booming trade in shield care products. A Viking warrior in Norway might find himself trading his prized catches for a barrel of that coveted Greenland moss. On top of this, the seasonal changes brought a unique challenge for shield maintenance. Come winter, when the winds howled and fjords froze, polishing schedules would often grind to a halt. Warriors were forced to rely on their ingenuity, sometimes resorting to a makeshift setup involving a fire pit and a shield suspended above it, not recommended for the faint of heart or the easily distracted. ### record keeping with lots of specifics. Now, let's get down to the nitty-gritty of the record keeping involved in Viking shield polishing. Each warrior maintained a personal logbook, detailing their polishing frequency, the materials used, and any amusing anecdotes involving their shields. A few records even contain doodles of rival warriors, complete with exaggerated shield sizes and questionable polishing techniques. One can only imagine the conversations that transpired during these record-keeping sessions. "Hey, Bjorn. You see that guy over there? He hasn't polished his shield in weeks. I think he's trying to start a new trend." This kind of banter was likely as common as a Viking's obsession with mead. What's more, these logs were often subject to inspection by local chieftains. A warrior caught slacking off could face severe consequences, from a public shaming to being forced to attend polishing lessons with the village's oldest warrior, an experience no one wanted to endure. These lessons, often filled with endless tales of past glories, were the stuff of nightmares for young warriors. ###One surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. Now, let's wrap up with a rather eyebrow-raising anecdote that encapsulates the sometimes absurd lengths to which Vikings would go in the name of shield maintenance. Picture this: a particularly zealous warrior named Ragnar, known for both his battlefield prowess and his ludicrously shiny shield. One fateful day, Ragnar decided that mere fish oil wouldn't suffice for his prized possession. No, he needed something more spectacular. After hearing tales of a rare, glowing algae found in the depths of a nearby fjord, he embarked on a quest to acquire it. After days of searching and numerous near-drowning incidents, he finally secured a jar of this extraordinary substance. Overjoyed, Ragnar rushed back to his village, eager to apply this new polish. However, unbeknownst to him, the algae contained a potent chemical that reacted explosively with certain types of wood. In an attempt to showcase his freshly polished shield at a local gathering, Ragnar inadvertently caused a chain reaction that set his shield ablaze, creating a spectacle of fire and panic that sent the villagers, and a few goats, sprinting for safety. In the aftermath, Ragnar became an unwilling legend, known as Ragnar the Fiery, a title that was more amusing than intimidating. His mishap served as a cautionary tale, reminding all warriors that when it comes to polishing your shield, it's best to stick with the basics. ###conclusion. And there you have it, a deep dive into the thrillingly tedious world of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Beneath the surface of their fierce reputation lies a society rich in tradition, bureaucracy, and yes, a surprising amount of logistical planning. So next time you hear tales of Viking conquests, remember, behind every great warrior was a shield that gleamed like the sun, polished to perfection, and perhaps, just a little too flammable. The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Ah, the Vikings! Those dashing marauders, sailing their longships across the frosty seas, pillaging and plundering with a raucous laugh and a hearty scowl. But behind the glorious image of horned helmets, which, let's be honest, they probably never wore, and epic battles lies a mind-numbing, soul-sapping saga, the meticulous world of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Yes, dear reader, you heard it right. While your imaginations may be filled with visions of heroic conquests, our journey today dives into the realm of regional variations, laws, logistics, and that one anecdote that's almost too grotesque to fathom. ### regional variations over time. The Viking Age, spanning from approximately 793 to 1066 AD, saw the Norsemen spread across a vast expanse, Scandinavia, the British Isles, and even parts of North America. But you might be surprised to learn that the shield polishing practices varied dramatically by region. In Sweden, for example, the shield polishers were likely to be serious about their task, perhaps even forming guilds and hosting competitions to see who could produce the shiniest shields. They certainly didn't want the Danes showing up with their dull, lackluster shields. It was a matter of pride, after all. Across the fjords in Norway, however, things took a different turn. If you were a shield polisher in Norway, you might find yourself less focused on the shine and more on the practicality of the task. This was the land of rugged terrain and unpredictable weather. Some Norsemen believed a well-polished shield was an invitation for misfortune. So, if you were in Norway, it was more likely that you'd find a shield covered in mud, battle scars, and perhaps a few remnants of last week's supper instead of a high-gloss finish. In the British Isles, the Viking settlers had another take. They took their polishing very seriously, often setting up elaborate schedules that regulated when and how often shields should be polished. These schedules were intricately woven into the community's daily life, much like a poorly written soap opera plot. Edicts from local leaders dictated that shields must be polished every fortnight, lest they attract the ire of the gods, or worse, the judgment of neighboring clans. Keeping track of this was no small feat, leading us to our next point. Laws, edicts, taxes, ledgers. Ah, the glorious bureaucratic tedium. Viking society was not all battles and banquets. There was also a surprising amount of administrative work. The shield polishing regulations were often codified into laws, with local chieftains issuing edicts that would make even the most jaded civil servant weep with envy. These laws specified the exact frequency and method of polishing, often with an eye toward the aesthetic and tactical benefits of a shiny shield. In some cases, failure to comply with these regulations led to fines or, worse yet, public humiliation. Imagine being the Viking equivalent of a DMV clerk, tasked with keeping track of who was up to date with their shield maintenance. The ledgers would be filled with names, dates, and an endless stream of notes about polish types, linseed oil for sheen, whale fat for durability, and, of course, the dreaded vinegar rinse for those who forgot their polishing days. Taxes were also levied based on the number of shields a warrior owned. If you had a collection of shields that rivaled a modern art gallery, get ready to fork over some serious coin. The more shields you had, the more polishes you needed to keep them in fighting shape, which led to a rather absurd situation: wealthy warriors hiring multiple shield polishers, creating a whole subclass of shield polishing specialists who were far from the battle but crucial to the warrior's reputation. Logistics and supply chains. Now, let's talk logistics. The Viking world was interconnected like a spider's web, with trade routes crisscrossing Europe, Asia, and beyond. This meant that not only were they trading goods, but also the materials needed for proper shield maintenance. The logistics of sourcing the right polish were essential. You couldn't just run down to the local Home Depot for some quick DIY supplies. No, sir. For the best polishing oils, you might find yourself trading with the Byzantine Empire for high-quality olive oil, while your neighbor in Denmark might be bartering with a local fisherman for some seal blubber. The supply chains were intricate, with shield polishers often taking on the role of middlemen, ensuring that warriors had access to the finest materials for perfect shine. There were even Viking, Polish fairs, where shield polishers would gather to showcase their wares and techniques, much like a modern-day beauty expo. Picture it, the finest shield polishers demonstrating their skills, while warriors perused the latest in shield fashion. Look at that sheen. It's practically blinding. Record keeping with lots of specifics. Speaking of fairs, the Vikings were surprisingly meticulous record keepers when it came to their shield polishing endeavors. Each village likely had a designated scribe, tasked with documenting the shield polishing protocols down to the nitty-gritty details: how often each shield should be polished, which polish worked best for each region, and which warriors were the most diligent in their upkeep. These records, while dull as dishwater to modern eyes, would have been crucial to maintaining a warrior's reputation. Ah, yes, Sigurd the Shield Shiny. He has polished his shield 12 times this month, while Bjorn the Blunt hasn't polished his in ages. Clearly, Sigurd is the bravest warrior. The specifics could be almost absurd. For instance, one record might state, Rolf the Heavy-Handed did not polish his shield on the first full moon of the harvest season, resulting in 5.3% more dirt accumulation than the average warrior. This will result in a fine of 3 sheep. Yes, sheep were the currency of choice for fines, and you better believe that warriors did not want to be the ones losing their precious livestock over a dirty shield. One surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. Now, we can't wrap up this tedious tale without a surprise twist, an anecdote so borderline grotesque that it almost feels apocryphal. Enter, if you will, the legend of the Håkon shield. According to lore, during a particularly harsh winter, a small Viking village found itself in dire straits. Food was scarce, and the people were growing desperate. In a moment of sheer madness, or perhaps brilliance, they decided to repurpose their shield polishing materials. They took the whale fat and mixed it with whatever remnants of food they could scrounge up. The result? A greasy, horrid concoction that was meant to be both a shield polish and a meal. As the story goes, one ambitious warrior decided to invite the entire village for a feast, proudly announcing that they would be dining on the famous Håkon shield soup. The villagers, driven by hunger and desperation, gathered around a fire, eagerly dipping their spoons into the bizarre broth. The shields had never looked shinier, but let's just say that the aftermath was not pretty. Not only did the village have the shiniest shields in all of Scandinavia, but they also had a collective case of food poisoning that would go down in history. The story of the Håkon shield would be passed down through generations, a warning to future Vikings about the perils of multitasking with their shield care routines. In the end, while Viking warriors may have been known for their fierce battle prowess, it's the meticulous, often absurd world of shield polishing protocols that truly paints the picture of their daily lives. From regional variations to the logistics of supply chains, the Vikings' dedication to their shield maintenance speaks to a culture that was as much about pride and community as it was about conquest. And who would have thought that behind every polished shield lay an equally tedious tale? Ah, history, you delightful tease. The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Ah, the Vikings, those rugged, horned helmet-wearing marauders who sailed the seas in search of glory, treasure, and a hearty meal of whatever they could pillage. But beneath the surface of their fearsome reputation lies a surprisingly mundane obsession, the art and science of shield polishing. Yes, my friends, while most of us picture blood-soaked battlefields and roaring feasts, the Vikings were spending countless hours obsessing over their shield maintenance schedules. Who knew that Viking life was so polished? Regional variations over time. First, let's talk about regional variations. The Viking Age, spanning from approximately 793 to 1066 AD, was not a monolithic experience. It was a time of regional diversity, much like the bizarre assortment of toppings on a pizza that's been left out in the sun too long. In Norway, for instance, shields tended to be round and made from wooden planks, often adorned with intricate carvings of local folklore. Meanwhile, in Sweden, they favored a more oval shape, which, let's face it, could also double as a fine piece of furniture if the whole rating thing didn't work out. But do not be fooled, the polishing protocols were no less rigorous. In Norway, a well-polished shield could make a warrior feel like 1,000,000 kroner. The annual Shield Shining Festival, yes, it's a real thing, albeit poorly attended, was a time for Norwegians to show off their gleaming shields, with prizes awarded for the shiniest. Meanwhile, the Swedes, ever practical, developed a simpler approach. They simply set aside 1 day a month for polishing, a day cleverly dubbed Polish Day. Not to be outdone, the Danes created a shield polish tax, which required warriors to pay a percentage of their loot in exchange for communal polishing equipment. Nothing says camaraderie like a good old-fashioned tax on shine. ##### laws, edicts, taxes, ledgers. Speaking of taxes, let's delve into the legalese of shield polishing. You might think that raiding and pillaging would take precedence over bureaucratic matters, but the Vikings had a flair for organization that rivals any modern corporation. Viking chieftains were known to issue laws and edicts that covered everything from what colors shields could be painted to how often they should be polished. Yes, there were actual laws governing the shine of your shield. Can you imagine the town crier announcing, "Hear ye, hear ye. The polishing of shields shall now occur quarterly on the full moon. Non-compliance will result in a fine of 2 goats and a pint of mead." In fact, Viking law codes often contain detailed ledgers of shield maintenance schedules. The Shield of the Year program was a popular initiative, which required clans to document their polishing frequency. A meticulous scribe would scribble down every polish, every coat of oil, and every bit of dust collected in a leather-bound ledger that would make any accountant weep with envy. Imagine the Viking accountant, quill in hand, solemnly recording, "Jarl Bjorn polished twice this week, but only once last week. Action must be taken." #### logistics and supply chains. Now, let's talk logistics and supply chains, an underappreciated aspect of Viking life. Shield polishing didn't just happen, it required a complex web of supply chains involving local woodworkers, metalworkers, and, oddly enough, bees. Yes, bees. The Vikings discovered that beeswax made for an exceptional polishing agent, which led to a surge in bee farming. Who knew that the road to a glorious shield was paved with honey and a few stings? Transporting this precious wax was no small feat. The Vikings were masters of the sea, but getting beeswax from the forest to the fjords involved a logistical nightmare akin to the modern-day supply chain crisis. There were bees to keep alive, wax to harvest, and, of course, the ever-present threat of marauding bears. Picture a band of Vikings struggling to keep their bees in check while dodging grizzly bears and logging complaints about their shield polish supply. #### record keeping with lots of specifics. Now, let's discuss record keeping. The Vikings loved their records. They maintained detailed accounts of shield polishes so that future generations could learn from their meticulous ways. One such record, known as the Great Shield Ledger of 951 AD, listed every polish undertaken by the warriors of Uppsala. This document had it all: the types of oils used, the duration of each polish, and even the weather conditions on the day of polishing. In the margins, you might find a note: polished in the rain, shield looks fabulous, but feels damp. Note to self: avoid rain next time. These records also included a comprehensive inventory of polishing supplies, including the types of cloth used for polishing. Flax cloth was preferred for its softness, while wool was sometimes employed for that extra shine. And if a warrior was feeling particularly extravagant, he might splurge on some rare silk cloth, an extravagance that would have his fellow warriors rolling their eyes and muttering about sissified shield polishers. One surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. And now, dear reader, for a truly surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. Legend has it that during the infamous year of the Great Shield Polish disaster, in 953 AD, a miscommunication led to a catastrophic event that would forever change the Viking approach to shield maintenance. The story goes that a young warrior named Rolf was tasked with organizing the annual polishing festival. However, instead of sending out the usual summons requesting shields for polishing, he mistakenly sent out a message inviting the entire village to bring their prized livestock for polishing. What ensued was a chaotic scene of goats, sheep, and even a few unfortunate horses arriving at the village square, all in various states of cleanliness, or lack thereof. The villagers, thinking it was a real hoot, began polishing their animals instead of their shields. By the time the error was recognized, the village square was filled with gleaming goats, each sporting a dazzling shine that would make any shield envious. In the end, the chieftain declared that the livestock polishing would be an annual event, much to the chagrin of the shield enthusiasts. Thus, a new tradition was born, the annual livestock shield Polish festival, where warriors would parade their shining livestock alongside their equally polished shields. If nothing else, it was a vivid reminder that even amidst their bloodthirsty conquests, the Vikings could still appreciate a good polish, be it on a shield or a goat. Conclusion. So there you have it, the tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. While the image of fearsome warriors brandishing gleaming shields is a captivating one, the truth is far more mundane. From laws, taxes, and logistics to record-keeping and the occasional livestock debacle, the Vikings were nothing if not dedicated to the art of shield maintenance. Next time you picture those legendary Norsemen charging into battle, just remember, behind every battle cry and war hammer was a well-polished shield, a meticulously maintained record, and perhaps even a goat that had seen better days. Now that's a history worth pondering as you sit back and enjoy your favorite Norse saga, shield in hand, perhaps with a small bowl of honey on the side. Cheers! The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Ah, the Vikings! The epitome of rugged masculinity, seafaring prowess, and, of course, the occasional penchant for shield polishing. While most people are busy romanticizing their pillaging and plundering, let us take a moment to dive into the riveting world of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Yes, You read that right. Not raiding, not looting, but the meticulous maintenance of their most beloved wooden discs. You might think you've stumbled into a history seminar gone horribly wrong, but sit tight, this is about to get interesting. Hashtag 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 regional variations over time. To understand the Vikings' approach to shield polishing, we first need to acknowledge that Viking culture was hardly monolithic. Oh no, my friend. Depending on where they were located, whether in the frostbitten fjords of Norway, the rolling hills of Denmark, or the misty shores of Iceland, shield care took on different forms. In Norway, for instance, the shields had a tendency to be a bit more rugged. Picture this: marine resin and fish oil were the go-to concoctions for waterproofing. Think of it as a Viking's version of sunscreen for their shields, keeping them protected from the elements while maintaining that oh-so-important sheen. Meanwhile, Danish warriors preferred a more minimalist approach. Their shields were often left as bare wood, allowing for a natural patina that spoke to their rugged lifestyles. But let's not forget the Icelanders, who took it up a notch with elaborate designs and patterns. You could say the Icelandic shields were the hipster art pieces of the Viking world. Polishing schedules were probably a hot topic at local gatherings. Oh, you only polish yours once a fortnight? How quaint. Hashtag 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 laws, edicts, taxes, ledgers. Now, if you thought the Vikings were all about bloodthirsty raids and hearty feasts, think again. They had laws, my friend. Yes, there were actual edicts regarding shield maintenance. Imagine a Viking assembly, complete with horned helmets and hearty laughter, where the topic of discussion is not just land or loot, but the sanctity of shield upkeep. In 872 AD, the Althing, a national assembly in Iceland, attempted to tackle the critical issue of shield polishing. If a man cannot keep his shield polished, proclaimed a particularly flamboyant Viking chieftain, he shall be stripped of his right to raid. A bold move, one might say. And it didn't stop there. Local taxes were levied on shield maintenance, with the government taking a cut of any oil or resin used in the polishing process. They even kept ledgers, yes, ledgers, chronicling the number of shields polished per household. One can only imagine the bureaucratic nightmare. You mean to tell me I have to account for every ounce of fish oil I use on my shield? What is this, the Shield Irrigation Act of 875? But alas, that was the world they lived in. A world where you could lose your right to pillage because you couldn't be bothered to keep your shield in tip-top shape. Hashtag 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 logistics and supply chains. Let's pivot to logistics, shall we? The Viking Age wasn't just about plundering, it was also about the efficient supply chain of shield maintenance materials. Enter the mighty trade routes. The Vikings were savvy traders who mastered the art of supply chain management long before it became a buzzword in modern business schools. Imagine a bustling marketplace in York, where an enterprising Viking merchant hawked fish oil, resin, and the increasingly popular polishing cloth of the gods. It was the Amazon Prime of its time, delivering essential goods faster than you could say, Odin. Shields were not just a means of defense, they were a status symbol, and keeping them polished was a priority among the elite. So, where did the materials come from? Fish oil was harvested from local fisheries, while resin was sourced from trees in the surrounding forest. In a particularly grim twist, some traders even resorted to using seal blubber for that extra glossy finish. If you think about it, it's like the Viking equivalent of artisanal avocado oil, only slightly less appetizing. Hashtag 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 record keeping with lots of specifics. Now, let's talk record keeping. The Vikings were notorious for their runes, but did you know they had an entire system for tracking shield polishing activities? It's true. They kept detailed records of which warriors had polished their shields and when. "Eric, did you polish your shield this week?" would be a common question, followed by a record of the date and method used, meticulously inscribed in runes on a piece of wood. Ah, yes, the fish oil method again. How creative. The meticulousness was next level. The ledgers were often kept by the local jarl, chief, who would assign a shield keeper responsible for overseeing the polishing schedules. This person had the daunting task of ensuring that no shield was left behind. "You missed a spot on Thorvald's shield," was a common phrase uttered in the halls of Viking homes. And let's not forget the role of women in this system. While the brawny warriors were off raiding, women often organized the logistics of shield maintenance. They made sure that polishing supplies were stocked, and that the warriors knew when to shine or face the wrath of the shield keeper. Feminism. You could argue it was alive and well in the Viking Age, even if it was just to ensure the boys kept their shields looking sharp. Hashtag 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 one surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. Now, to wrap this all up, we can't ignore the darker side of shield polishing. There's an anecdote that truly exemplifies the lengths to which Vikings would go to keep their shields in tip-top shape. It involves a particularly vain warrior named Bjorn the Buffoon, who was obsessed with maintaining a perfect, glossy shield. Legend has it that during a raid, Bjorn discovered a new polishing technique that required a bizarre combination of fish oil and goat milk. Yes, you read that right. Goat milk. And not just any goat milk, but the milk from a particularly angry goat named Grumpy Gus. Apparently, this goat had a reputation for being temperamental, but Bjorn was convinced that the combination would give his shield an unbeatable shine. One fateful day, Bjorn decided to capture Grumpy Gus for his precious milk. After a fierce struggle involving a lot of bleeding and kicking, he managed to secure a bucketful of the coveted liquid. But as he was preparing to polish his shield, Grumpy Gus had other ideas. In a fit of rage, the goat charged at Bjorn, sending him tumbling into a nearby mud pit, shield and all. The result? A shield that was not only coated in goat milk but also in a delightful mix of mud and fish oil, giving rise to a new shield polishing craze known as Bjorn's Blend. The irony? While Bjorn was completely humiliated, his fellow warriors found the concoction to be a surprisingly effective polish, and soon they were all clamoring for their own bucket of Grumpy Gus's magic milk. So there you have it, the tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. It may not be the most glamorous aspect of Viking life, but it certainly adds a layer of depth to our understanding of these fierce warriors. Behind every pillage and plunder, there lay meticulous planning and a surprising amount of goat-related antics. Who knew that beneath the blood-stained axes and fierce battles, the Vikings were also grappling with the existential dread of shield upkeep? So, the next time you think of Vikings, remember, it's not just about the raids, it's also about the shine. The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Ah, the Vikings! Those burly, bearded marauders who sailed the northern seas, terrorizing unsuspecting villages and plundering anything that wasn't bolted down. Yet, behind every ferocious raider stood an equally fearsome administrative nightmare: shield polishing schedules and protocols. Yes, that's right. While you might envision a warrior sharpening his axe or preparing for a raid, somewhere in the back of the longship, a scribe was meticulously recording when and how often those shields were to be polished. Let's dive into this riveting, or perhaps rivetingly dull, world of Viking shield maintenance. ### regional variations over time. First, let's establish that Viking society wasn't a monolithic entity where every warrior followed the same polishing schedule. Oh no, the Norsemen were as diverse in their shield polishing practices as they were in their choice of hairstyles. From the fjords of Norway to the rolling hills of England, each region had its own peculiarities. In the early days, the shield was a simple wooden disc, often painted with symbols representing the clan. But as Vikings migrated and mingled with other cultures, their shields evolved. The introduction of iron fittings and bronze embellishments led to a shift in the polishing protocols. For instance, in the Scandinavian regions, it was customary to polish the shield once a month, believing that a shiny shield would invoke the favor of the gods. Meanwhile, in the British Isles, Viking settlers adopted a more laid-back approach, opting for a quarterly polishing schedule, likely due to the weather. Who wants to polish shields in the rain? Then, of course, there were those overly ambitious shield-bearers who insisted on a weekly polishing regimen, likely so they could brag about their gleaming shields at the next raid. This led to what we can only assume were some rather heated debates at the local thing, the Norse Assembly, about the merits of shine versus practicality. After all, while one warrior was busy buffing his shield to a mirror finish, another was probably off crafting a new axe or, dare we say, doing actual work. ### laws, edicts, taxes, and ledgers. In their quest for administrative excellence, or perhaps just to keep the shield polishing enthusiasts in check, Viking leaders implemented a series of laws and edicts governing shield maintenance. The infamous Shield Polishing Act of 865 AD, for instance, mandated that each warrior keep a detailed ledger of polishing activities. This was not merely for show, it was a matter of pride and, more importantly, survival. Imagine, if you will, a Viking chieftain, sitting in his longhouse, poring over ledgers filled with meticulously documented polishing schedules. Aha, he might exclaim, Olaf has not polished his shield in 2 months. To the stocks with him. A lackluster shield was seen not just as a personal failing but as a potential threat to the collective safety of the clan. After all, you can't go raiding with a dull shield, can you? What would the neighbors think? Taxes were also levied on shield maintenance. Yes, that's right. The shield maintenance tax of 873 AD was a real thing, implemented to fund the local shield polishing guilds. These guilds took their jobs very seriously. They would send out inspectors to ensure that every shield was being polished according to the prescribed schedule. If you failed to comply, you could expect a visit from the local tax collector, perhaps accompanied by a group of disgruntled shield polishers, all armed with highly polished shields and a fierce sense of indignation. ### logistics and supply chains. As with any good bureaucratic system, logistics and supply chains played a significant role in the Viking shield polishing empire. Imagine the scene, a bustling marketplace in a Viking settlement, where merchants were hawking not only weapons and armor but also the finest polishing materials known to man. From the rarest oils extracted from various animal fats to the most exquisite cloths for buffing, this was a lucrative market. Vikings became rather adept at sourcing their polishing supplies. A well-polished shield required not just elbow grease but also the right products. For the more discerning warrior, a mix of whale blubber and ground-up stone was considered the gold standard for achieving that perfect sheen. Thus, the logistics of supply chains became critical. Shipping in whale blubber from the Arctic? No problem. Importing fine cloth from the Mediterranean? Easy peasy. This led to a burgeoning trade network where Viking longships became floating depots of polishing supplies. Some enterprising merchants even began to package their products in branded containers, such as Thor's Polish or Odin's Shine. Because if you're going to raid, you might as well do it with style. ### record keeping with lots of specifics. Record keeping was not merely a bureaucratic formality, it was an art form unto itself in Viking society. The shield polishing ledgers, often referred to as skjoldbøker, were elaborately illustrated tomes filled with intricate drawings of polished shields alongside detailed accounts of each polishing session. These ledgers specified not only the date and time of each polishing but also the type of oil used, the method of application, and even notes about the weather conditions, because who wants to polish a shield in a storm? The meticulous nature of record-keeping led to some hilarious misunderstandings. For instance, one entry in a skjoldbok from 873 AD read, "Polished Olaf's shield using seal oil on a sunny Tuesday. Shield now smells like fish." One can only imagine Olaf's embarrassment when he showed up for a raid, his shield gleaming but with a distinct fishy aroma that had the other warriors snickering behind their hands. And let's not forget the legendary annual shield polishing contest, where warriors would gather to showcase their shield polishing prowess. The winner would not only earn the title of Master Polisher, but also gain the right to a year's supply of polishing materials. However, the outcome of these contests was often a closely guarded secret, with rumors swirling about bribed judges and clandestine alliances formed among the more ambitious shield polishers. ### one surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. And now, for the piece de resistance, a surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote that might just leave you questioning your appreciation for Viking shield polishing traditions. In the year 890 AD, a particularly ambitious warrior named Bjorn decided to take his shield polishing regimen to an entirely new level. Inspired by tales of the gods, he believed that the key to achieving the ultimate shine lay in the use of human fat. Yes, you read that right. Bjorn, in a misguided quest for glory, concocted a plan to gather the fat from fallen foes to use in his polishing endeavors. The poor souls who had the misfortune of crossing paths with Bjorn didn't stand a chance. According to local lore, Bjorn would gather around a campfire, chanting the name of Odin while rendering down his grisly supplies into a foul-smelling paste, which he then applied to his beloved shield. When the other warriors caught wind of Bjorn's bizarre practice, they were horrified. One particularly brave warrior, Gunnar, decided to confront Bjorn. "You've gone too far, Bjorn. A shield polished with the fat of the fallen. What's next? A helmet lined with the hair of your enemies?" Bjorn, however, was unfazed. He proudly showcased his shield, gleaming with what he claimed was the glory of battle. While it did shine brilliantly, the smell emanating from it was so foul that it reportedly drove away allies and enemies alike. In the end, Bjorn's fame was short-lived. He became known as Bjorn the Odorous, and his shield was eventually retired to a local museum, where it remains to this day, a testament to the length some will go for a shiny shield. ###conclusion. So there you have it, the surprisingly dull yet oddly fascinating world of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. Who knew that behind the fearsome facade of the Viking warrior lay a complex web of laws, logistics, and a touch of grotesque ambition? While we may celebrate their exploits on the battlefield, let us not forget the unsung heroes, the scribes, the merchants, and yes, even Bjorn the Odorous, who contributed to the rich tapestry of Viking life. Next time you think of the Vikings, remember that beneath their fierce exterior lay a society that took shield polishing as seriously as they took their raids. And who knows? Maybe the next time you pick up a shield, or a frying pan, you'll ponder the rich history of its upkeep in the hopes of channeling your inner Viking, minus the fishy aroma, of course. The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. The Vikings, often celebrated for their ferocity in battle and their adventurous spirit, have a surprisingly mundane side that is often overlooked, the meticulous maintenance of their shields. While the image of a Viking warrior brandishing a shield and axe in the heat of battle is undeniably captivating, the reality of their lives was far more complex, filled with intricate schedules and protocols for shield polishing that would make even the most ardent historian raise an eyebrow. Minor figures and petty rules. At the heart of Viking shield maintenance were a host of minor figures, shield polishers, if you will, who operated in the shadows of the more glamorous warriors. These individuals, often relegated to the background of Viking sagas, played a crucial role in maintaining the warriors' armaments. One such figure was Bjorn the Buff, a lesser-known shield polisher from the 9th century, who was said to have had an obsession with the sheen of wood. His rules for polishing included a strict regimen that mandated the application of a particular blend of animal fats and tree resins, which he claimed produced the shiniest surface. Bjorn's protocols, however, were not universally accepted. Rival shield polishers in his village often mocked his regimen as overly meticulous. They argued that in the chaos of battle, a well-polished shield was a luxury rather than a necessity. Yet, in a famous incident in 873 CE, Bjorn challenged the local warriors to a duel, claiming that a well-polished shield would provide him an unfair advantage. Despite being outnumbered, Bjorn emerged victorious, and his polishing protocols were adopted by many, albeit begrudgingly. This brings us to the myriad of petty rules that govern the culture of shield polishing. For instance, it was said that a polished shield could only be displayed in sunlight on the first day of a full moon, lest it become stale and lose its protective qualities. Similarly, some warriors believed that shields polished with the oils of a wild boar were imbued with extra strength, a belief that led to a minor scandal in 885 CE when a warrior was caught using domestic pig oil instead. The ensuing backlash was a reminder that even in a warrior society, reputation and adherence to tradition could dictate one's standing. Case studies with dates and lists. To illustrate the absurdity of these protocols, we can examine a few case studies that stand out in Viking history. The first case is the infamous shield polishing incident of 897 CE, which involved a group of warriors from the town of Skara. Eager to present their shields for an upcoming raid, they decided to hold a polishing tournament to determine whose technique was superior. The event quickly spiraled into chaos when a rogue polisher named Rolf the Hasty mistakenly used a mixture of salt water and powdered stone instead of the customary oils. The result? A series of shields that were not only dull but also scarred with unsightly scratches. The warriors were forced to delay their raid, leading to a significant loss of reputation among their rivals. A second notable incident occurred in 914 CE, known as the silliness of shield surfaces. In this case, a Viking chieftain named Eric the Eloquent believed that the patterns on a shield could affect its performance. He commissioned a series of shields with intricate designs, believing that the more elaborate the artwork, the more invulnerable the shield would be. This led to a competition among polisher artists, who began to prioritize aesthetic appeal over practicality. The result was a collection of stunning but ineffective shields that were eventually deemed unsuitable for battle after a disastrous encounter with a rival clan. To further illustrate the absurdity of Viking shield polishing protocols, we can compile a list of notable dates and their associated events in shield history. 850 CE, the first recorded mention of shield polishers in the Viking sagas, leading to the establishment of guilds. 873 CE, Bjorn the Buff defeats rival warriors, legitimizing his elaborate polishing techniques. 897 CE, the shield polishing incident of Skara leads to a significant embarrassment for local warriors. 914 CE, Eric the Eloquent's ill-fated design competition results in a collection of ineffective shields. 950 CE, the introduction of standardized polishing protocols by a council of chieftains, unifying practices across regions. Comparisons to other regions. When comparing the Viking approach to shield polishing to that of other regions during the same period, one cannot help but be amused. In the Byzantine Empire, for example, armorers were held in high esteem, but their focus was on the construction and durability of shields rather than their aesthetic qualities. Byzantine warriors often favored functional designs, prioritizing materials like iron and leather over wood and polish. This pragmatic approach led to the creation of some of the most durable shields of the medieval period, though they lacked the luster of their Viking counterparts. In contrast, the samurai of Japan had their own unique customs surrounding the care of their shields, or rather, their armor. Samurai culture emphasized ritual and aesthetics, often incorporating elaborate lacquer finishes on their armor. While the care of their armor was taken seriously, the level of obsession seen in Viking shield polishing was largely absent. Instead, the samurai were more concerned with the balance of protection and mobility, making their armor lighter and more practical for combat. Archaeological tidbits. Archaeological findings provide fascinating insights into the Viking obsession with shield polishing. Excavations in sites such as Birka and Hedeby have unearthed a variety of wooden shields, some of which bear evidence of extensive polishing. Researchers have noted that many shields from the Viking Age were made from layered wood, suggesting that the polishing process was not merely cosmetic but also played a role in preserving the integrity of the shield itself. One particularly interesting find was a shield discovered in a burial site in Norway, dating back to around 900 CE. The shield was adorned with intricate carvings, and residue analysis revealed traces of animal fat and tree resin, consistent with the polishing techniques described in Viking sagas. This finding underscores the notion that polishing was an integral part of shield maintenance, reflecting both the artistic sensibilities and practical concerns of the Viking people. Moreover, the remains of grinding stones and polishing tools found alongside shield fragments indicate that the polishing process was often a community affair, involving multiple artisans and laborers. This collaborative approach to shield maintenance contrasts sharply with the individualistic culture often associated with Viking warriors, highlighting the importance of community in even the most mundane aspects of life. But was the obsession with shiny shields a mere reflection of vanity, or did it serve a deeper purpose in the Viking psyche? Could the act of polishing a shield be seen as a ritualistic preparation for battle, a way to invoke the favor of the gods before facing one's enemies? Two rhetorical questions to hook curiosity. As we delve deeper into the tedious history of Viking shield polishing, one must wonder, what drove these fierce warriors to obsess over the shine of their shields when they faced life and death battles? Were they simply caught in the throes of a cultural quirk, or was there a more profound significance behind the ritual of polishing that we have yet to uncover? In conclusion, while the image of the Viking warrior is often romanticized through tales of conquest and adventure, the reality of their lives was filled with mundane yet fascinating details, such as the protocols surrounding shield polishing. From the minor figures who dedicated their lives to polishing to the petty rules that governed their practices, the history of Viking shield maintenance reveals a culture that balanced ferocity with meticulousness. So the next time you envision a Viking warrior, imagine not just the clash of swords but also the careful attention given to the gleaming shield that stood between him and his fate. In the grand tapestry of history, even the most tedious details can illuminate the human experience in unexpected ways. The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. When one thinks of Vikings, images of fierce warriors, longships slicing through icy waters, and thunderous raids often come to mind. Yet, beneath the surface of this rugged facade lies a strikingly detailed and intricate world of domestic life, complete with its own mundane yet fascinating practices. One such practice, often overlooked in the grand narratives of Viking conquests and sagas, is the meticulous art of shield polishing. Indeed, the history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols is not only a testament to their craftsmanship but also a reflection of their societal values, minor figures, and quirky regulations. ####minor figures and petty rules. In the tapestry of Viking life, minor figures played crucial roles, often overshadowed by the more prominent warriors and chieftains. Among these lesser-known individuals were the shield polishers, artisans who dedicated themselves to the maintenance and enhancement of this essential piece of battle gear. The Vikings believed that a well-polished shield symbolized not only personal pride but also communal honor. To regulate this craft, local assemblies, known as Thing, established protocols governing the frequency and method of shield polishing. In the early 10th century, the Thing of Lodköping, circa 940 CE, outlined a decree requiring all shield owners to polish their shields at least once per fortnight, lest they incur the ire of their neighbors and risk being branded as unfit for battle. Furthermore, petty rules emerged around the details of polishing. The Skaldic Codex, a lesser-known collection of Viking poetry and lore, specifies a hierarchy of polishers based on skill and experience. The term skjold referred to a novice, while skjoldmer denoted an expert. It was common for villages to hold competitions to determine the finest polishers, with the victor receiving not only acclaim but also a share of the village's spoils during raids. ###Case studies with dates and lists. Several notable case studies illustrate the importance of shield polishing within Viking culture. One such instance occurred in 965 CE in the coastal settlement of Birka, where a grand assembly was convened to address the declining standards of shield upkeep. The assembly produced a public decree that mandated the following schedule for shield maintenance. 1. Weekly inspection. Every Monday, warriors were required to present their shields for inspection by the village's appointed skjold. 2. Monthly polishing. On the first of each month, a village-wide polishing day was instituted, where everyone would gather. This became a social event, blending labor with communal bonding. 3. Seasonal renewal. During the winter solstice, shields were to be thoroughly cleaned and re-oiled, a practice believed to ward off bad luck in the coming year. In another case from 1020 CE, historical record from Hålogaland details the consequences faced by a lazy warrior named Eirik the Slothful. Eirik's shields were found to be in a state of disrepair, leading to a public shaming at the Thing. A list of his infractions included the following. 1. Neglected polish. Eirik failed to shine his shield for 3 consecutive months. 2. Improper storage. His shield was left in a damp environment, leading to rust and decay. 3. Failure to comply. Eirik did not attend the monthly polishing day, opting instead for leisure activities. As punishment, he was compelled to wear a shield made of wood during the next raid, a symbol of his negligence and a source of ridicule from his peers. Comparisons to other regions. While the Vikings were known for their unique approach to shield maintenance, a comparative study of shield care practices in other regions reveals intriguing contrasts. For example, in the Mediterranean, particularly among the Greeks and Romans, shield upkeep was more focused on aesthetics than functionality. Greek hoplites often decorated their shields with elaborate paintings and symbols rather than dedicating time to polishing. The emphasis was on the display of wealth and status rather than the practical need for a polished shield. In contrast, the Japanese samurai had their own protocols for armor maintenance, which included regular polishing of their shields, known as tachi. The samurai's approach mirrored that of the Vikings in that it combined utility with ritual. However, the Japanese tradition placed a stronger emphasis on the spiritual significance of the sword and shield, often intertwining maintenance with martial arts training. The differences in these practices raise an interesting question: did the Vikings view polishing as a mere chore, or was it an integral part of their identity as warriors? And how did these cultural priorities shape their view of honor and shame in battle? Archaeological tidbits. Archaeological findings have shed light on the Viking approach to shield polishing. Excavations at sites like Hedeby and York have unearthed a plethora of shield remnants, many of which exhibit signs of meticulous care. The presence of polishing stones, often made from fine-grained sandstone, indicates that Vikings had established tools specifically for this purpose. Interestingly, some shields have been found adorned with intricate designs, suggesting that polishing was also a means of showcasing artistry. The Gokstad ship, unearthed in Norway, contains shields that feature detailed carvings, which would have required regular polishing to maintain their beauty. This duality of function and aesthetics is key to understanding the Viking mindset, where practicality did not eclipse the pursuit of beauty. Moreover, a recent discovery at the burial site of a Viking warrior revealed a set of polishing tools alongside the individual's shield. This finding suggests that polishing was not only a communal practice but also a personal one, with individuals taking pride in their equipment even in death. The tools were made of materials such as wood and leather, indicating a level of craftsmanship that parallels the production of their weapons. Rhetorical questions. What deeper meanings lie hidden within the routine practice of shield polishing, and how did this seemingly mundane task shape the very identity of the Viking warrior? Could the ritual of polishing have served as a metaphor for the Vikings' relationship with honor, duty, and battle itself? Conclusion. The history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols is a vivid tapestry interwoven with minor figures, petty regulations, and cultural significance. Through the lens of shield maintenance, we gain insight into a society that valued not only the warrior's prowess in battle but also the communal standards of honor and discipline. The meticulous care given to their shields illustrates an understanding of identity that transcended mere functionality, reflecting pride, artistry, and the deeply ingrained values of the Viking ethos. In our modern world, where the mundane often overshadows the extraordinary, the Viking practice of shield polishing stands as a reminder of the complexities embedded in the daily lives of those who lived centuries ago. It challenges us to reconsider the narratives we construct around history and to recognize the importance of even the most tedious practices that define a culture. The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. When one thinks of Viking culture, images of fierce warriors raiding coastal villages or exploring foreign lands often come to mind. However, lurking behind the tales of blood and thunder lies a surprisingly meticulous and often underappreciated aspect of Viking life, the art of shield polishing. While the swords clashed and the longships sailed, an equally important battle raged in the shadows, the battle against tarnish and grime on the iconic round shields that adorned every Viking warrior. This essay delves into the minor figures and petty rules that govern shield polishing schedules and protocols, revealing the intricate and often humorous history behind what could be deemed one of the most mundane aspects of Viking life. Minor figures and petty rules. In any society, the devil is often in the details, and the Vikings were no exception. While the legendary figures of Ragnar Lothbrok and Lager often steal the limelight, a host of minor figures contributed significantly to the daily life and customs of Viking society. Among these unsung heroes were the Shield Polishing Coordinators, SPCs, a title that might evoke laughter today, but was taken very seriously in the Viking Age. The SPCs were tasked with overseeing the shield polishing schedule, a complex set of rules designed to maintain the integrity and appearance of the shields. These coordinators were often chosen based on their experience in shield maintenance, and it wasn't uncommon for them to have apprenticed under a master shield polisher. Their authority extended to deciding the types of oils and materials used in polishing, with each SPC having their own preferred combinations. For example, some adhered to the ancient tradition of using fish oil mixed with fine sand, while others championed the use of beeswax for a glossier finish. Disputes over these choices could lead to minor skirmishes in the villages, but more often than not, they resulted in humorous debates at the local mead hall. The SPCs were also responsible for creating an annual polishing schedule, which was distributed to all warriors in the village. The schedule delineated specific days for shield maintenance, often aligning with lunar cycles, as many believed that the moon's phases affected the effectiveness of the polishing materials. The waxing moon was considered the prime time for polishing, while the waning moon was reserved for repairs and mending. These schedules were sometimes met with resistance, as warriors often deemed polishing a chore that detracted from more adventurous pursuits. One particularly amusing episode occurred in 865 CE when a group of warriors in the village of Gotterdal, frustrated with the relentless polishing schedule, staged a rebellion known as the Shield Revolt. They formed a secret society dubbed the Brotherhood of the Shield, which met covertly to plot against the SPC. The result? A series of slapstick mishaps involving unpolished shields that led to several embarrassing defeats in mock battles, proving that even the most mundane duties can have dire consequences. Case studies with dates and lists. To understand the importance of shield polishing in Viking culture, we can examine several notable case studies from history. In 874 CE, the unification of Norway under King Harald Fairhair coincided with a documented shield polishing competition held in the village of Borg. The event drew participants from across the region, with each warrior presenting their finest shield for evaluation. A panel of esteemed SPC judges assessed the shields based on criteria such as shine, craftsmanship, and the intricacy of designs. The results of that competition are recorded in the annals of Borg history, revealing the following winners. 1. Bjorn Ironhand, winner of the Most Polished award, known for using a secret blend of seal oil and ground quartz. 2. Astrid Shield Maiden, winner of the Most Creative Design, with a shield depicting a rare mix of Norse runes and Celtic knots. 3. Olaf the Old, winner of the Best Historical Shield, for his ancient battle-worn shield, showcasing the beauty of imperfections. These competitions were more than mere displays of vanity, they fostered a sense of community and camaraderie among the warriors, while also instilling a sense of pride in their craftsmanship. Another illustrative event took place in 921 CE in the Norse settlement of Kvenland, where a notable shield polishing day led to a significant cultural exchange. The local SPC, a man named Ragnald, invited neighboring Slavic tribes to participate in a day of festivities centered around shield maintenance. Ragnald's meticulous scheduling allowed for an elaborate feast, complete with competitions in shield polishing techniques. This event not only enhanced the skills of the Vikings but also strengthened diplomatic ties with the Slavic tribes, showcasing how even the most mundane tasks can have far-reaching implications. Comparisons to other regions. While the Vikings had their own unique take on shield polishing and maintenance, it is interesting to draw comparisons with other regions during the same period. In the Byzantine Empire, for example, shields were often made from a combination of metal and wood, and their maintenance protocols were similarly intricate. Byzantine warriors employed a range of oils and polishing powders that included crushed gemstones to achieve a dazzling finish. However, unlike the Vikings, the Byzantine Empire placed a greater emphasis on aesthetics over functionality, often prioritizing ornate designs over practicality in battle. In contrast, the samurai of feudal Japan had their own approach to armor maintenance, focusing on the preservation of their katana. While the polishing of shields was not a concern for them, the meticulous care of their blades shared a parallel with Viking shield protocols. Samurai would often spend hours polishing their swords, using a combination of charcoal and fine cloth for a reflective shine, much like Vikings would use beeswax and fish oil. Ultimately, these comparative practices highlight how different cultures approached the care of their combat gear, with the Vikings' focus on communal schedules and competitions contrasting with the individualistic and highly aestheticized practices of their counterparts in other regions. Archaeological tidbits. Archaeological findings have illuminated the complexities and nuances of Viking shield care. Excavations in Norway and Sweden have uncovered numerous shields, many of which bear the marks of intense usage and subsequent maintenance. One notable find in 2010 in the Viking burial site at Ostfold revealed a collection of shields that were meticulously preserved, complete with remnants of oils and polishing materials. The shields from this excavation featured intricate patterns that not only served decorative purposes but also indicated the owner's rank and accomplishments. Analysis of these remnants has shown that the Vikings employed diverse materials for polishing, including animal fats, tree resins, and even crushed seashells for a unique texture. Such findings have led researchers to theorize that shield polishing was not merely a maintenance task but a ritualistic act that conferred status upon the warrior. One particularly fascinating archaeological tidbit comes from a shield found in a burial mound in Gotland, dated to around 800 CE. The shields would have been treated with a unique combination of linseed oil and pine resin, possibly indicating that the owner had access to specialized knowledge or trade connections. This discovery sheds light on the importance of shield maintenance in reflecting one's social standing in Viking society. Rhetorical questions that hook curiosity. As we dive deeper into this seemingly trivial aspect of Viking life, we must ask ourselves, what hidden stories lie beneath the surface of a shield, polished to perfection? And in a world dominated by tales of conquest and exploration, could the true strength of a Viking warrior have been forged in the humblest of rituals, the art of polishing their shield? In conclusion, the history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols may seem tedious at first glance, yet it reveals a rich tapestry of community, craftsmanship, and cultural identity. From the minor figures who oversaw the polishing to the competitions that fostered pride and camaraderie, every aspect of this seemingly mundane task contributes to a deeper understanding of Viking life. By examining the historical records, case studies, and archaeological findings, we gain insight into a society that valued not only the thrill of battle but also the artistry and care that went into maintaining their most iconic symbols of warfare. The legacy of Viking shield polishing, then, serves as a reminder that even the most overlooked details can hold profound significance in the tapestry of history. The tedious history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols. The Viking Age, often romanticized as an era of brutal warriors and daring sea raids, also presents a fascinating tapestry of mundane yet essential activities that were crucial for the daily lives of Norse seafarers. Among these, the meticulous art of shield polishing stands out, not simply as an aesthetic endeavor but as an intricate part of Viking culture, revealing insights into their social structure, values, and even their petty disputes. This seemingly trivial task involved a plethora of minor figures and petty rules, case studies, comparisons with other regions, and archaeological tidbits that together create a more nuanced understanding of Viking life. Minor figures and petty rules. To fully appreciate the importance of shield polishing, we must first consider the minor figures involved in this laborious process. While the legendary Viking warriors like Ragnar Lothbrok and Bjorn Ironside often take center stage in sagas, it was the lesser-known shield-bearers, craftsmen, and even the occasional shield-polishing apprentices who played vital roles in the upkeep of these critical assets. Among them, there were designated shield wardens, an unofficial title bestowed upon those who took it upon themselves to oversee the polishing protocols during long voyages. Imagine a scenario where two shield wardens, Egil and Thorvald, engaged in a heated debate over the correct mixture of beeswax and linseed oil to use for optimal sheen. According to the sagas, Egil favored a 70-30 mix, while Thorvald insisted on a 50-50 ratio, citing the ancient text of the Skaldic Shield Codex, a fictive but widely referenced manuscript. These minor figures, often overlooked in historical narratives, showcase the intricate social dynamics at play, even in the seemingly trivial act of polishing a shield. Petty rules abounded in local communities. For instance, it was a common regulation that each household had to polish their shields every full moon, lest they be considered neglectful or unprepared for the inevitable raiding season. Failure to comply with this lunar schedule could lead to public shaming at the local thing, the assembly, where the offending party might have to endure the embarrassment of a humorous poem recited by a local skald. Case studies with dates and lists. The history of Viking shield polishing is dotted with case studies that illustrate how these rituals evolved over time. One notable instance occurred in the year 850 CE, in the settlement of Birka, Sweden. Archaeological records indicate that the community held a shield polishing festival, which involved not only the polishing of shields but also competitions to determine whose shield could achieve the highest gloss. Winners received a prize of mead and the prestigious title of Shiny Shield Champion. A list from this event documents the top 10 competitors and their respective polishing techniques. 1. Einar the Gleaming employed a secret blend of fish oil and crushed seashells. 2. Astrid the Dazzler used a mixture of beeswax and wildflower pollen. 3. Bjorn the Buffed advocated for a simple approach using only linseed oil. 4. Freydis the Finisher suggested adding a dash of vinegar for extra shine. 5. Sigurd the Shimmering preferred a polishing cloth made from the wool of his prized sheep. 6. Hilda the Haughty mixed ash from burnt wood for a rustic finish. 7. Ragnar the Radiant believed in the application of a second polishing layer for depth. 8. Gunnar the Glossy utilized a family recipe involving honey and crushed river stones. 9. Carry the Keen favored a no-polish approach, arguing that battle scuffs added character. 10. Leif the Lustrous preferred a ritualistic method involving chants during the polishing process. In contrast to the Swedish practices, the Norwegians had their own unique approaches. By 900 CE, records show that in the Oslofjord region, warriors developed a tradition of shield swapping, where they would trade polished shields for a season to display different artistic motifs and gain prestige. Comparisons to other regions. While Viking shield polishing might appear trivial in isolation, it is intriguing to compare these practices with those in other regions during the same historical period. In the Byzantine Empire, for instance, soldiers would spend considerable time maintaining their armor, but this was often more about functionality than aesthetics. The Byzantines prioritized the structural integrity of their shields, favoring the use of iron and reinforced wood over the decorative elements that the Vikings cherished. This difference highlights a broader cultural contrast, where Vikings saw beauty and ritual in their weaponry. The Byzantines focused on efficiency and defense. Even within Europe, the knightly cultures of the Franks and Saxons emphasized metalworking and heraldry over the more labor-intensive polishing rituals that the Norse held dear. For the Vikings, a well-polished shield was not merely a reflection of personal pride, it was a symbol of readiness for battle and a testament to craftsmanship, encapsulating their warrior ethos. Archaeological tidbits. Archaeological findings have revealed much about Viking shield polishing practices. In 2010, excavations at a Viking burial site in Norway uncovered a number of shields adorned with intricate carvings, some of which showed signs of wear from extensive polishing. Radiocarbon dating placed these shields around 850 to 900 CE, and analysis suggested that the materials used for polishing were local to the region, including oils extracted from fish and plants prevalent in the Nordic landscape. Interestingly, a 2015 study published in the Journal of Northern Studies presented evidence that some shields were intentionally damaged before being buried, possibly to signify the warrior's readiness for the afterlife. This practice underscores the spiritual significance attributed to shields, elevating the act of polishing from a mere chore to a ritual act laden with meaning. Moreover, the discovery of polishing tools, such as wooden paddles, cloth remnants, and bowls used for mixing oils, at various archaeological sites provides further insight into the elaborate nature of this task. These tools were often decorated with runes or symbols believed to possess protective qualities, further intertwining the act of polishing with spiritual beliefs. Rhetorical questions to hook curiosity. What if the meticulous art of shield polishing was not merely a chore but a form of storytelling, where each gleam and polish encapsulated a warrior's legacy? Could it be that beneath the surface of Viking raiding culture lay a deeper appreciation for beauty, craftsmanship, and community that has been overshadowed by tales of bloodshed and conquest? In conclusion, the history of Viking shield polishing schedules and protocols offers a unique glimpse into the social fabric of Norse society. From minor figures and petty disputes to community festivals and archaeological revelations, this seemingly mundane task unveils the rich tapestry of Viking life. As we probe deeper into these details, we find that even the most tedious aspects of history can illuminate the complexities of human culture and creativity. The Vikings were not only fierce warriors but also craftsmen, artists, and community builders, all of which can be glimpsed through the gleaming surfaces of their polished shields. And that's a wrap. We dove deep into the world of topic, unearthing gems and giggles along the way. Who knew learning could be this fun? Here's a surprising twist. Did you know that? Insert surprising fact related to the episode. Mind blown, right? If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and drop a comment below. Let us know your thoughts. And while you're at it, check out our related episodes for even more mind-bending content. Oh, and don't forget to turn on loop so this episode can play on repeat until you drift off into dreamland. Sweet dreams, and see you next time.